Hey, what's up, beautiful people? It's Mote here, and today I'm going to walk you through the very important points you must take note of, either before you sign a record label contract or if you own a label before you sign an artist, right? If you don't know who I am, my name is Mote. I am an entertainment and a business lawyer primarily. I've worked in this space for about 6 years. I've worked on Fiverr. I've done about 600 contracts on Fiverr at this point. You could go to Fiverr and search for entertainment lawyer, and you would see my profile. All right. So I want to quickly walk you through the points you have to take note of before you sign a record label contract or before you sign an artist. And if you want to work with me after this, I'm going to keep my email in the description, or you could just send me a message on Instagram at Motelegal, and I'll be happy to work with you. All right. The first thing you have to take note of is the scope of the agreement. So you need to know, what does this recording contract cover? There are 360 deals where the record label earns from everything the artist is involved in. The record label invests in the brand of the artist, not just the music. And then the record label earns from everything in the entertainment industry which the artist is involved in. And there are also other kinds of contracts where the record label just earns from the master recordings created during the term of the agreement. So the first thing you have to do is to define the scope of the agreement. What is this label going to be getting from me? And from the label's angle, what am I giving to the artist and what am I getting? I represent both the artist and the label depending on who I'm working with at the time. So this video is going to talk about the deal from both perspectives. So the first thing, as I mentioned, you need to define the scope of the agreement. Secondly, you need to know, how long is this artist going to be signed to the label? If you are the artist, you need to ask yourself, how long will I be signed to this record label? From the label's point of view, the labels like to have the term of the contract as long as possible so that they can invest in the artist, have time to invest in the artist, and have time to recoup the investment and also make profit, right? Artists just want the term of the contract to be long enough for the company to make the investment and then recoup its investment and maybe a little profit, right? Artists don't like the contract to be too long. So the idea is to find the meeting point between what the artist wants and what the label wants. And that's, in most contracts, is around 3 to 5 years, in most record label contracts. But it also depends largely on the parties involved. If a big label is signing a smaller artist, it may go up to 6 years. If a small label wants to sign a big artist, the artist stands in a very good position to negotiate maybe a 3-year or a 2-year term. All right. So it also largely depends on the parties involved. If you want to sign a record label contract or you want to sign an artist, as I mentioned earlier, you could send me an email or you could just send me a DM on Instagram, and I'll be glad to work with you. Another thing you need to take note of is the artist exclusively signed to the company? Most recording contracts are exclusive. However, when the contract is just for the delivery of master recordings, then it's not always exclusive. So you need to know, is this contract exclusive or not? The third thing, during the term of the agreement, what is the artist expected to deliver? How many master recordings? How many albums? How many EPs? So this largely depends on the term of the agreement, right? If the term is for 5 years, you may be expecting maybe 3 albums, 2 albums, 2 EPs, depending on what you guys agree on. But at the end of the day, you want to be properly informed as an artist of what you'd be giving this label. From the label, you want to ensure that the contract contains what the artist is expected to provide. All right. So the recording requirements, very important. The fourth thing is who owns the masters. The fourth thing is who owns the masters. The masters is the final sound recording after it has been mixed, mastered, the one you upload on Spotify, TuneCore, CD Baby. That is the masters. So the question is, who owns the masters? In traditional record label deals, the label owns the masters. This is because the label invests in the artist, invests in the creation of the music, invests in the entire brand of the artist. And so the label stands in a good position most of the time to negotiate ownership of the masters. Now we are gradually moving into a scenario where the artist owns the masters but licenses the masters to the company for a number of years, say, let's say 15 years or 10 years after the term of the contract. All right. So who should own the masters in your contract? Again, depends on the parties involved. If a smaller artist is being signed by a big label, then the label, of course, because of what they bring to the table, can always decide to own the masters. And this will be in the contract. And since the artist is not yet big, the artist could just agree. But if a big artist is signing to a smaller label, then of course the artist stands in a good position to negotiate ownership and just license it to the company for a term of years. All right. But it's very important because who owns the masters determines who gets to exploit the rights to the masters in the long term. Of course, the contract needs to mention the services the artist will be providing. It needs to mention production of the masters. Another thing you have to take note of is the advance. The advance, by the way, I'm looking at a contract right here, a contract I created for a client, right? So I'm just going through it and I'm just going to talk to you regarding the contract I have here. The advance is the money given to the artist upon signing the contract. This is fully recoupable. So from the artist's point of view, if you don't need the advance, then there's no need to collect it. All right. Also, every money spent by the label on the artist is fully recoupable. From the production of the masters, to the creation of the videos, to the creation of merchandise, to travel expenses, to hotels, like all of these expenses are recoupable. So you have to take note of this as an artist. What you could do from the artist's perspective is mention probably in the contract that the label can spend past a certain amount without consent of the artist. That will kind of keep the expenses of the label within check, where they don't just overspend because they have the rights to spend. All right. Also, there's something called the controlled composition. For the compositions embodied in the master recording created during the term of the contract, from the label's perspective, the label should have a clause that restricts the artist from exploiting those compositions for a term of years after the contract expires, usually around 5 years. From the artist's perspective, it should be like limiting that number to 2 years after the term. So what this would mean in essence is, for the master recordings created during the term, of which the artist owns the composition, the artist cannot create a remix or another version of that master recording for a term of years after the contract expires. This gives the company, the label, the leverage and the time to actually commercially exploit the masters before a new version comes out. Now let's go to royalties. Royalties largely depends on the parties involved. Like, let's say the parties are pretty much equal. Not a very big label, not a very big artist, but the label wants to invest in the artist. You'll be looking at like a 50-50 deal. All right. But when it tilts to one side, then you find situations where the label is earning 60, maybe 70, or you find situations where the artist is earning 60, maybe 70. So it also depends on who is the bigger party, who has the leverage, who has the bargaining power. This determines who ends up getting the most royalty. If a big artist is signed to a small label, the label may not be able to negotiate higher royalties, except the label is bringing in significant investment to boost the artist even more. All right. I forgot one thing, and so I have to talk about it. The other thing you have to take note of is the governing law. If there's a dispute in this agreement, how will that dispute be settled? So usually this is going to be the jurisdiction of the company as per where the company is located. All right. But as an artist, you may want to consider negotiating it to your own country if the label is outside the country. All right. Because you don't want a situation where there is a dispute and then you have to try and get a lawyer in some other country. That's going to be a lot expensive. All right. So if you are the weaker party and you are in a different country, it will be in your best interest to negotiate for the governing law clause to be the laws of the country which you reside in and in which you have access to lawyers. I hope you gained something from this video, and subscribe. I'm going to be making more videos and better videos. I'm trying to get used to this YouTube thing. So just subscribe and work with me as I grow this channel and bring you value. Thank you.